Hello there everyone and welcome back to the GSL-English Podcast. My name is Gideon and this is a podcast here to help you practice and improve your English in a relaxed and natural way. And in this episode, I'm going to be basically chatting with you about a variety of different topics in a casual and natural way. And this is a brilliant exercise, I guess, if you want to test, practice and improve your English listening skills, because this is exactly how you will hear English spoken in real life situations. So we're going to talk about a variety of different topics. And of course, as we go along, we'll explore some vocabulary, phrasal verbs and all of that good stuff. But if you do understand most of this episode, if you're able to follow along, if you understand bits of it, then it's a good test of how you will get on here in the United Kingdom with your English, because I have things prepared, different topics we're going to talk about, but I want to do so in a spontaneous way. So this isn't perfectly scripted word for word. This is how the English language naturally is. So my idea of this episode and of this exercise is for you to be able to be as prepared as you can to use English in real life situations. So there you go. So before we get into it, you know what I'm going to say. If you are a returning viewer or listener, if at all possible, grab a cup of coffee, grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, relax, switch off from all the stress and everything important you have to do, and just enjoy this episode with me. So, as I said, we have a real variety of topics today. You could even call it a plethora of topics. What's a fantastic word? Plethora. If you're listening on Spotify, that is spelt Plethora, and it is a noun, plethora. An excessive or overabundant amount of something, a large quantity or variety. So basically, if we have a plethora of something, we have pretty much more than we need. As an example sentence, we might say, the buffet offered a plethora of dishes, ranging from Italian pasta to Japanese sushi. The buffet, that is like the restaurants that you go to where they have copious, an abundance of food. You go up, get it, and then you bring it back to your table. So we could say that the buffet offered a plethora of dishes. Now, just as a little side note, I'm not really a fan of buffets. I know, not because I'm a snob. You're not going to say, oh, Gideon, you're such a snob. You don't like buffets. That's not it at all. I think I'm just lazy. If I go to a restaurant, I just like to have the food brought to me. I don't like to have to go up and then I get stressed. So my eyes are bigger than my belly. So I just basically fill my plate up with this ridiculous mountain of food. I'm never going to get through it. I find it stressful, making sure that I haven't missed anything. I'm not good with a buffet. I really am not. So when there is a plethora of dishes, I don't know where to start. I don't know where to end. So I get bits of everything. And then I have this awful concoction of every cuisine under the sun, and it never works. So I'm not really a buffet fan. I know, but it's not because I'm a snob. We could say she had a plethora of ideas for the project. She had multiple ideas, loads of different ideas, and that made it difficult to choose just one. She had a plethora of ideas for the project, making it difficult to choose just one. So, when some people have got such good ideas, they have multiple ideas, more than you need, plethora of ideas, you can't choose just one. Or we could say the internet provides a plethora of information. there's far too much information on the internet, isn't there? But not all of it is reliable. The internet provides a plethora of information, but not all of it is reliable. There is so much information out there on the internet, but can we trust all of it? Not all of it is reliable. The bookstore had a plethora of novels in every genre, making it a paradise for book lovers. So if you are a book lover, when you go to those bookstores or those libraries or those shops and they just have every book under the sun, more than you could ever need. There's a plethora of novels in every single genre, and it is like a paradise for book lovers. So we'll call that the word of the week, We don't ever do that, but I'm going to do it for this episode. We've got a word of the week, which is plethora. Now, before we kind of get into a topic that I wanted to discuss on this podcast, I wanted to go through how you can make the most of listening to English, particularly, of course, this podcast, this episode. But I wanted to focus on why listening to natural English is so helpful. So that's what we're trying to do in this episode and all other episodes of the podcast, actually, is present the English language to you in a real and natural way. But why is that so beneficial? Why is that so helpful? Because I believe that if you do listen and absorb the English in an authentic and natural way, it increases your level so much quicker than just focusing on textbook English or perfect English. So why is it so important? Well, firstly, we get a lot of advice, don't we, about listening to real and natural English, and that's because it improves your understanding, it improves your comprehension of real conversations. There's lots of videos on YouTube. I was doing a bit of research before this where they kind of present these English conversations to help you prepare for conversations, but I'll be honest with you, they're just weird. I think some of them are produced by artificial intelligence, but you end up having these odd conversations using expressions that no native or advanced speaker is going to use, and the answers are just weird. Like, if I had those conversations with someone, I'd think, I want to end this conversation because it's strange. So when you listen to natural English, natural conversations, it helps you to improve your authentic, your native understanding of the language. Because in everyday speech, people don't talk like they do in textbooks. A lot of the times, people don't talk like they do in films. We use slang, contractions, idioms, casual expressions. Now, of course, in the United Kingdom, when it comes to British English, this changes a lot depending on where you are in the country. And that's one thing that makes it fantastic. But just for example, where I am, rather than saying, I have to go, we'll say, I got to go. I got to go. So perhaps in a textbook or in one of those artificially generated or there's the badly scripted conversation videos you get, I have to go. That's not how you're going to hear it in English. You say, I've got to go. I've got to go to the shops. I've got to go. Not, I have to go. I want to go to the cinema. I want to go to the cinema. Can you hear the rhythm? It's so much more natural than I want to go to the cinema. I want to go to the cinema. Listening to that, although it might be difficult at first, you're getting used to the spontaneous pauses. You're getting used to the spontaneous fillers between words, between points, between expressing emotion. Like. Those terms. You know, I've got a friend, he always in between points says the word like. Okay, you're not going to be taught that in a textbook, but that is what a lot of people do here. Connected speech. It can be tricky, but it's crucial for understanding English at a native and advanced level. So listening to natural, real English, honestly, is so important if you want to improve your understanding, your comprehension, and also your personal use of the language. And this is also because doing so boosts pronunciation and intonation awareness. So listening to natural speech helps you hear how words are stressed, linked, and reduced. For example, what do you want? Sounds like, what do you want? What do you want? And by training your ears, just to hear these patterns, just absorbing these patterns when you're listening to natural conversations, it not only improves your pronunciation, but it improves your rhythm, your flow. And that is what helps you to speak more fluent and natural. Listening to natural English also enhances vocabulary, phrasal verbs, and idioms. Listening to everyday conversations exposes you to phrases that, quite frankly, you're just not going to hear elsewhere. Idioms and expressions that are often very much missing in formal studies, in textbook English, and a lot of video lessons that are out there. Now, of course, as you go through this, even with this podcast, there'll probably be words used that you won't quite understand, you won't get. But it's not all about learning words. I was talking to somebody about this the other day, that absorbing the English language, like podcasts and things like that, it's not all about learning vocabulary and using fancy idioms. It's just about feeding yourself with English in its authentic, in its natural form of how it is used in English-speaking countries. So the more you do this, the more your brain is absorbing the rhythm, the flow, the connections, the filler words, the intonation, all of those things. And you passively end up just taking it in. And that's hopefully what you get from this podcast. Okay, you might not learn every word under the sun, every idiom that's going, but you're preparing yourself, you're preparing your brain, you're training your brain to think about English not just in its textbook perfect form, but in its natural, realistic form. Another reason that you should listen to natural podcasts like this one and make the most of these English listening videos. I don't know why I do that voice. Sometimes it just feels right, so I apologize for that. It develops listening for context, not just words. Natural conversations involve implied meanings, humour, cultural references, and by listening regularly, you improve your ability to understand context and tone. And this is really important. The more you listen, you pick up on perhaps sarcasm. Now, and not just the words that are used. You pick up on humour. You pick up on meanings that aren't apparent by just the words alone, but the different meaning is implied. Perhaps a joke or sarcasm or something, being a little bit rude or obnoxious. Just by listening to natural conversations and natural podcasts and natural English speaking, listening, whatever, you start to pick up on that, not just the words, but what is behind those words. What is the implied meaning? Because, for example, in your own language, you will know that the way you say something, the tone that you use, the speed that you use, or just basically whatever you're saying, often has a different meaning to simply the words that you are using. So it helps you to develop that contextual listening. And the most important thing, the reason that you should really focus on natural listening practice in English is it prepares you for real-world interactions. English is not and will never be perfect. It changes, it adapts, it evolves all the time. A lot of formal learning materials, which we have to use at the beginning, I'm not saying against them at all, but if you're listening to this podcast now and you're still watching or listening along, you're clearly past that point of beginner. You know, you want to really progress. So those formal learning materials, they use clear, structured English. But in real life, people speak fast, casually. They miss out words. The pronunciation isn't perfect. They have different accents. So exposure to spontaneous speech trains your brain to process language faster and adapt to different speaking styles. And this does take time. It takes consistency, and there are brilliant resources out there to do it. You've got Luke's English podcast. He sometimes does episodes where he speaks spontaneously. Absolutely brilliant. There's conversations between teachers on YouTube. There's one, Dylan from British Education. His accent is very different to mine, but the way he presents the English language is fantastic, and he often does spontaneous episodes. There's loads out there. Check them out. But I encourage you to focus your English this year on natural English listenings, whatever it is, whether that's through podcasts, whether that's through YouTube videos, radio stations. Try and absorb the English in its natural form as regularly and as often as you can. Okay? I really can't encourage you enough to make that your goal this year. You've got it. All right. That's just a little bit I wanted to go on to. Now, many of you will know that I recently moved house. Okay, recently moved house. We're settling in absolutely fine. In fact, we're very happy here. You'll be pleased to know. But it's unlocked a new hobby in me, guys. It's unlocked something in me that I always knew I would enjoy. But I guess later on in life, I never really had the opportunity. But earlier than that, I just couldn't really be bothered. And that is cooking. Since we moved into this place, I said to my wife, I really want to start cooking more. And I've done it. And I am absolutely loving it. The other night, we had some friends over and I cooked fajitas. Kind of like a Tex-Mex style of fajitas. And it was good. I was really proud of it. I cooked bangers and mash the other night. Made my own gravy, so that's sausage and mash. I'm planning to make pies and a proper Sunday roast. And I think the reason that I'm loving it so much is I find that when I'm cooking, when I'm preparing meals, which I've only been doing for about 3 weeks, there's me talking like I'm a chef. But for the last 3 weeks, when I'm cooking, when I'm preparing meals, I switch off. I mentally switch off, which is a great phrasal verb. If we switch off from something, it means that we stop thinking about anything, basically. We just relax. We stay calm. We haven't got all of the thoughts of the day processing through our mind. We're not stressing about all the things we've got to do that we didn't get done today. We just switch off mentally. And cooking is really helping me to switch off. And I absolutely love it. Like the other night when I was cooking bangers and mash, I had my country music playing. Regular listeners will know that I absolutely love country music. I had that playing loud. I was cooking away. I had a glass of wine. And I just thought, you know what? This is really, really good. So cooking, hopefully, is going to be my thing this year. So as I said, I want to make the perfect Sunday roast. It's my favourite meal. British Sunday roast. Absolutely love it. So that's on the cards. I want to make some good pies. And I might kind of explore the more Asian side of cooking. But yeah, let me know in the comments. Have you got any tips for starting out cooking? Is there any dishes you recommend from your country, me trying to make? And would you be interested in a vlog style video of me cooking? I know that sounds a little bit weird, but I thought maybe we could make something of that. We'll see. Let me know in the comments. Do you want to watch me cook? No, not in that way. I did that vlog kind of episode. It's the only one I've done last summer, I think, where I just took you on a day in the life of doing jobs in the garden. And you guys enjoyed that. So I thought maybe we could do one about cooking a little bit. So I thought we could look at some idioms related to cooking. Okay, so since cooking's on my mind at this moment, I've prepared some idioms related to cooking. Now, if I said to you, come over my house, I am going to cook up a storm. Okay, come over. I'm going to cook up a storm. What do you think I mean? Well, if we cook up a storm, we prepare a large, elaborate meal, and we do it with, great enthusiasm. We enjoy it. It's not just doing it because we have to. We're enjoying it. For example, she cooked up a storm for the dinner party. She made 5 different dishes. When you cook up a storm, you really go for it when it comes to cooking. Do you like to cook up a storm? Here's one. To put all your eggs in one basket. To put all your eggs in one basket. Now, if we put all our eggs in one basket, we risk everything on a single opportunity. For example, if we imagine that we had a basket of eggs, we were carrying that basket of eggs and we fell, all the eggs would break. But if we divided those eggs out, then okay, we might fall and break 2, but we'll have some left. As an example, investing all your money in one stock is like putting all your eggs in one basket. Generally when you invest money, you put it into different stocks. So you've got more chance of success. And if you put it all into one stock and that stock goes down, then that's it. You've lost all your money. So you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. To simmer down. This is an interesting one because this could be used as a phrasal verb, but also as an idiom. When we simmer down, it means we calm down after being angry or agitated. He was furious at first, but he eventually simmered down and apologized. So perhaps we reach boiling points where the anger, the emotions come out, and then after that, we simmer down. We calm down. Just like boiling water on the stove. When it's boiling, it's bubbling, then we turn the temperature down and it just calmly simmers. The next one I really like. A watched pot never boils. Have you ever had it where you're waiting for water to boil and because you're watching it, it feels like it's taking forever? And basically, when we say that a watched pot never boils, we're saying that if you wait for something impatiently, it often seems like it's taking a lot longer. Perhaps you've messaged someone that you really want a reply from. Stop staring at your phone, waiting for a reply. A watched pot never boils. You ever messaged someone that you really wanted a reply from and you just stare at your phone? It makes that time seem so much longer. A watched pot never boils. If you wait for it impatiently, staring at it, it does seem to take a lot longer. And the last kind of cooking or food or ingredient related idiom I came up with is when we sugarcoat something. When we sugarcoat something, we're making it seem more pleasant or more acceptable than it actually is. Often when we have to give bad news, we sugarcoat it or we don't sugarcoat it. For example, the manager didn't sugarcoat the bad news. He told us the company was going under. If a company is going under, it means that they're no longer going to be trading. Things are bad, whether that's financial reasons or whatever. They're going under. Sometimes we sugarcoat something by making bad news seem better. If we were to take a bland piece of food, if we covered it in sugar, it makes it more edible. It makes it easier to digest. So when we sugarcoat something, we're making it easier to take in, particularly when it comes to bad news. So there's 5 idioms. Think about using them over the next week. To cook up a storm. To put all your eggs in one basket. To simmer down. A watched pot never boils. And to sugarcoat something. Now, on the topic of food, there's something that I need to talk about. And that is the truth about British food. One thing I hear a lot from social media, from different forums, and even students, is that British food isn't great. And let me tell you, I wholeheartedly disagree with it. I think British food is great. I absolutely love it. And in the process of researching this, I thought, you know what, I'm going to look up the history of British food. And there's a website, you guys know I love it, called historicuk.com. And it had this brilliant article on the history of British food. And basically it shows that it's not just British food. A lot of our food is influenced, was brought over by others. So we're going to talk about that now. We're going to read this article on the history of British food. So, of course, as we go through it, we'll break down some of the vocabulary that's used. And I would love to know your opinion. If you have visited the United Kingdom, England, whatever, what was your opinion of the food? You can be honest, but if you say it was bad, I disagree with you. No, I'm joking. But, yeah, no, I will. But let me know. What was your experience? If you have visited England, did you like the food? So the history of British food. Great Britain, 3 very different countries, England, Scotland and Wales, each with a rich and varied history and culture. Perhaps this explains the diversity of its culinary traditions. The history of Britain has played a large part in its traditions, its culture, and its food. The Romans, for instance, brought us cherries, stinging nettles, to be used as a salad vegetable, cabbages and peas, as well as improving the cultivation of crops such as corn. And they brought us wine. The Romans were prolific road builders, these roads allowing for the first time the easy transportation of produce throughout the country. So, it starts off by talking here about what the Romans brought over to England. Cherries and stinging nettles. Stinging nettles are those things that you walk past that really sting your legs. But of course you can make soup out of them, and some people do eat them in salads and things like that. But the Romans, they brought a lot over to England. It even talks about them being prolific road builders, meaning they went to town on the roads in England. And they brought roads over, making transportation and produce throughout the country so much easier. So there you go, going all the way back there. Some of our culinary delights came from the Romans. Then it goes on to talk about the Saxons. The Saxons were a Germanic people who originated from what is now northern Germany, Denmark, and the Netherlands. The Saxons were excellent farmers and cultivated a wide variety of herbs. These were not used just for flavour, as they are today, but were used as bulk to pad out stews. The Vikings and Danes brought us the techniques for smoking and drying fish. Even today, the northeast coasts of England and Scotland are the places to find the best kippers. Arbroath smokies, for example. Collops is an old Scandinavian word for pieces or slices of meat. And a dish of collops is traditionally served on Burns Night, 25th of January in Scotland. So here we go. Our culinary influence coming from the Saxons, the Vikings, and the Danes. Then it goes on to talk about the Normans. The Normans were a people of mixed Viking, Norse, and Frankish descent who emerged in Normandy, France, during the 10th and 11th centuries. Their name comes from Northmen, referring to their Viking ancestors who settled in northern France. So the Normans invaded not only our country, but also our eating habits. They encouraged the drinking of wine and even gave us words for common foods. Mutton, mouton, and beef, bœuf. I'm sorry about the pronunciation there. For example, in the 12th century, the Crusaders were the first Britons to taste oranges and lemons whilst in Jaffa in 1191-2. So we see here more influence for us. Encouraged the drinking of wine and brought over more culinary delights. Britain has always been a great trading nation. Saffron was first introduced into Cornwall by the Phoenicians at a very early date when they first came to Britain to trade for tin. Derived from the dried and powdered stigmas of the saffron crocus, saffron is still used today in British cooking. Phoenicians bringing things over to Cornwall. As many of you know, Cornwall on the southwest coast of England is probably my favourite part. One of my favourite parts of the United Kingdom in the whole. But you see the influence of our food, it goes way, way back. And it is very interesting. The importation of foods and spices from abroad has greatly influenced the British diet. In the Middle Ages, wealthy people were able to cook with spices and dried fruits from as far away as Asia. It has been said, however, that poor people were lucky to eat at all. In Tudor times, new kinds of food started to arrive due to the increase in trade and the discovery of new lands. Spices from the Far East, sugar from the Caribbean, coffee and cacao from South America, and tea from India. Potatoes from America began to be widely grown. Eccles cakes evolved from Puritan days when rich cakes and biscuits were banned. Turkeys were bred almost exclusively in Norfolk up until the 20th century. In the 17th century, turkeys were driven from Norfolk to the London markets in great flocks of 500 birds or more. The feet were sometimes bandaged to protect them. Upon arrival in London, they had to be fattened up for several days before markets. The growth of the empire brought new tastes and flavours. Kedgeree, for example, is a version of the Indian dish khichdi and was first brought back to Britain by members of the East India Company. It has been a traditional dish at the British breakfast table since the 18th and 19th centuries. Nowadays, you can sample cuisines from all around the world. Chinese, Indian, Italian, French, American, Spanish, Thai, the list goes on. Reflecting the ethnic diversity of Britain today, as well as the modern ease of travel, some would even claim curry to be a traditional British dish, although it bears or has little resemblance to the curries to be found in India. So what is British cuisine? This is the main point. Roast beef and Yorkshire pudding, steak and kidney pie, trifle. These are the dishes that everyone associates with Britain. But like the country of Britain, which is constantly changing and evolving, so is British food. And whilst today these dishes are traditionally British, in the future, perhaps dishes such as the British curry will join them. God, that's a difficult one to say. Perhaps dishes such as. So I just thought that was quite an interesting article. And basically highlighting that a lot of our food has really been inspired or brought over from other nations. So when we talk about British food being bland and rubbish, it's just simply not true. Okay, we do have the staples that you either love them or you don't. Your roast dinners, your fish and chips, bangers and mash. I'm really getting that sound mixed up today. Different pies, trifle, Yorkshire puddings, roast beef, blah, blah, blah. We do have all of that, which I love them all. And they're not, if you have them done properly, they're lovely meals. But here in Britain, we have such a variety of food to try. For example, if you go to London now, the amount of incredible different nationality restaurants are absolutely amazing. So you have all of that. You've got some amazing food here in England. But British food in and of itself is not that bad. We have some, honestly, if you go to the right places, we have some amazing dishes. So I won't have it said that British food is bad. Maybe you have experienced bad British food. But let me know in the comments, if you have done so, what was your experience? Did you like it or did you not? So, the last thing we're going to talk about today is making time for hobbies. So aside from cooking, which I am determined to stick with, determined to keep up, cooking, I'm really enjoying it, and I will keep you updated on my cooking progress. But I've not had a lot of time for hobbies recently. And as many of you know, one of my hobbies, one of the things I absolutely love to do is to play the drums. I absolutely love the drums. But I guess like many of you, life gets in the way, doesn't it? I moved house, work, family commitments. So one of my goals is to make time for more things I love. And I thought maybe that's something we could all try to do. I know we all have different circumstances. We're all from different countries. We're all living very different lives. But can we take more time for the things that we just simply enjoy? Not because anyone else tells us to, not because someone else enjoys it, but we take time for the things that we enjoy simply because we enjoy them. So my goal, carry on cooking and music. I really want to get back into music, whether that's drums or guitar, but making more time for that, because I genuinely think we all have to make time for the things we love to do, the things that we personally enjoy. So share that with your friends. Share it in the comments here. Send me an email. What do you like to do? What do you enjoy? Or what do you want to start enjoying more? Have a think about it and let me know. So the final thoughts of this episode, the importance of listening to natural English. It really is essential. So make that your goal. Listen to natural English. We spoke about cooking. We looked at some food-related expressions. We read that article on the history of British cuisine. That we really are very fortunate with the culinary treats that many nations have brought over. And finally, make time for hobbies. I hope you found this episode useful. If you did enjoy it, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and keep an eye out for the next episode. Thank you so much for listening. Have a lovely weekend. Have a great week ahead, and I'll see you all soon. Have a good one, guys.